The market revolution results in us having a lot of people who are becoming more affluent as they are selling products and entering into businesses all outside the home. And what we begin to get is what we call middle-class values. And middle-class values are things that are provided to us by our culture. Now we live today in America that's multicultural, right? And so you might have a goth culture, right, that really wouldn't embrace somebody who was dressed all preppy. And a preppy culture wouldn't, accept somebody coming in with tattoos and looking funny. So we got all these different cultures. But we had a very dominant culture come into America for the first time, and this dominant cultural system expresses what it is you should live up to. And America, not unlike other civilizations and societies, have been very good about informing you how you should be dressing, how you should be speaking, and what you should be thinking. And that is what is called our culture. Now, the culture that develops from this period of time suggests that if you're doing well, then your home looks like this. And this is this whole cult of domesticity idea. Women are staying home and making an ideal house. The ideal here is the father's been off at work in some position that makes a family income, and that his wife has been working on domestic things. They've still got, 4 kids there? Now, women and their standards and what they're supposed to do and how this is an ideal, we've got to now communicate that and for it to become a cultural standard. And we've got to get the churches on board and the educations on board, leaders on board, and the women on board too in many ways. This is Gaudi's Ladies' Book. And this ideal house is well appointed. It's got the trappings of civilization there, nice drapes and carpets and china and dining room furniture, a parlor where she can entertain other women. And this house is to be impeccable. An ideal situation would include several servants. An ideal situation would include latest fashions. And you should be up on the latest fashions, and you should be up on even books that are coming out. Gaudi's Lady Book is kind of a preparation for you so that you can know what it is you should be knowing, right? Because when you do have that dinner party or you do have ladies over for tea, these are the expectations. And these are full of articles about what you should be doing in your home to reach this new standard. Do we have magazines like this today? What do we call some of those? Better Homes and Gardens? Good housekeeping. There you go. Good housekeeping. That's it. Good housekeeping and those things are our standard makers in America. They're things that we're supposed to judge ourselves by, and who else? And others, right? I would hate for someone to go to my house right now and see. It looks like somebody went in there with a leaf blower. And I'm supposed to feel embarrassment, right? Because, in fact, that's how we utilize. That's how we get people to adopt standards, is we shame people. And then if they do the right thing, then we honor them by talking about, we had tea at Miss Havisham's house the other day. And it was beautiful. She had everything perfect. She had the newest things, and everything was well appointed. Her Irish cook seemed very good. And so she gets a lot of praise. And so her social stock, goes up, right? But then they went over to what's-her-name's house. The kids were a mess, and it was a wreck. She was clearly flustered. Fare that she was able to offer wasn't as good. I think she had lost her cook. Yada, yada, yada. And so what happens to her? She comes down. And so we have this tradition in America, in Western society, other societies do this too, but can we use the word manipulate? To motivate behavior by people through standards. And shame and stigma are the things that get people to change their behavior. And praise and honor, when we put somebody on a pedestal, are what attract other people to try to be like these paragons of society. And we do a really good job in the 1800s of beginning to formulate this new middle-class standard. That becomes a dominant culture for us and a way by which we transmit to the public what it is they should be living up to. And this has a very central role for women in society in the home, and they're not expected to engage in activities outside the house. Outside the house is a man's world, and the man will dominate this world. They will go off into the rough and tumble, day-by-day business adventures. They won't be as ethical as their wives are expected to be, but that is simply the sad truth about the world that men live in. And the home is supposed to be almost a sanctuary for men from this world. The women are expected to oversee the moral development of the children more than the fathers are. Women are to leave to men all things having to do with that outside world, and the world of politics, the world of business, the world of the professions, the world of the arts too. And women are to be more secluded. They are allowed to go to other women's houses, but they would never be in the company of a male that is not their husband or a member of their family. Women would not speak in public. Women would not speak even at a church before men. That would be called a promiscuous crowd, is when there would be men and women present, and it would be thought unwomanly. There's also an idea of male superiority, and males have their area where they dominate, and women have areas where they dominate. They dominate everywhere outside the house. All right. That becomes a prevailing cultural value to us, or a culture of ours, which is going to become the American standard as the 19th century goes into the 20th century. And it will create lots of obstacles to women living in a way that does not conform to those ideals. So there's going to be all kinds of cultural barriers to a woman becoming a doctor, a lawyer, a professional. And this is going to cause cultural battles, right? When women try to step outside of what were perceived to be cultural norms, that invites problems. All of our cultural battles that we have in America are about changing perceptions about how people should live and what they should do. And we have lots of those battles over the last couple centuries. This is just kind of creating a foundation, which we'll be coming from. And by the way, is there a return of these values in the early 21st century? In some ways there are. There's a fairly conservative movement in America that would like to see a revival of this sort of thing. And if a family does have enough income, then they want to. The ideal situation would be where women are at home. Now there is a more blended thing now, where if you're at church, you could probably speak before a Sunday school meeting, but there'd be ideas about women speaking in certain churches based on cultural values and the assumptions about the rightful role of women in front of men, things like that. So it's interesting. That stuff doesn't go away. It changes over time. And now we live in this multicultural world that we have. P.T. Barnum, here's his museum in New York. Here's some of his oddities. That's Tom Thumb, I think, down there. That is P.T. Barnum. He's just I don't know if he was a little taller than average or not. But what he creates here is, the Titanic exhibit at Pigeon Forge, right? Not really, but this is the earliest formation of something that people are willing to come and pay admission for. And so when you go to the cities, everybody's saying, you got to go see P.T. Barnum's museum. And the cities become a place where people come to do transactions. Also, theaters begin to emerge. And all of a sudden, going to a city becomes an entertainment service for us. It's an entertainment industry. And so this is what's going to set up the cities as the major developers of all of our cultural traditions, like what would come today, broadcasting. Most of the challenges that come to us in our culture in America come to us from the cities. The cities will change the way they live, even their expectations. In the countryside, it's about traditional agrarian values, hard work, thrift, that is saving your money, sobriety, a life that is about expectations and being pretty serious. The cities are going to be about fun, about entertaining yourself, about looking for and trying to choose how best to spend your money to get the maximum amount of pleasure that you want. And we are going to begin to see the cities that grow up as offering an entertainment economy. You'll have the theaters opening up in cities. You'll have places like P.T. Barnum's. But the whole idea here is that there's a bigger purchasing power in the cities. There's more people, more consumers. And because there are more consumers and more money around, business people can go into and raise the capital to build a theater. And knowing that they can sell enough tickets to this thing in the city, that they can sustain it. Now this, later on, by the end of the 1800s, will give us the rise of vaudeville in New York City. And P.T. Barnum will give us, and this whole entertainment approach will give us in New York City, Atlantic City, and it will give us Coney Island and things like that. It'll also give us, by that point in time, department stores and Marshall Fields and Bloomingdale's and Macy's, and so that's all coming in the cities. There's one last idea here for you, the lyceum. And lyceums are intellectual forums. A forum is a place where people come together to discuss an idea, going back all the way to the Roman Forum where the Senate would meet. A forum is simply this organized event. Now, the lyceum movement in America was where Americans were very interested in what's happening in the world. New idea in economics or in psychology or in the sciences. And so a lyceum, by the way, is an urban phenomenon. It's an urban phenomenon. This is taking place in cities. City people want to know what's happening in the world. You can be reading things, right? You're being presented to you these new materials they're reading. And so what happens at a lyceum, I'll give you an example of an advertisement in a newspaper for the Bar Lyceum. A meeting will be held at Hathaway's on Wednesday the 19th at 7 in the morning. Question for discussion. Are there any good reasons why the doctrine of phrenology should be believed as taught at the present day? And this is an advertisement by the Secretary of the Lyceum. So here's a group of people who want to know, should we be believing in this philosophy called phrenology? Have you heard of phrenology? Phrenology, quickly, it's was a philosophy that was emerging that there's these different parts of the brain and they control how we behave. And so if you're trying to figure out why somebody is behaving the way they are, maybe there's some kind of problem with their head. And of course, we're trying to understand behavior, and this will be the realm of science eventually, right? We'll have psychology that will try to find behavior. In more recent times, we're doing all kinds of brain mapping, right? But because we do think that the structure of the brain is going to impact how we behave. But this is what we would call a pseudoscience. It looks scientific, but it's not real science. And so the people in the Bar Lyceum want to know, should we be believing the stuff that we're hearing about? Now, I'm not that interested in talking about phrenology, but what I'm interested in you seeing is that in the cities are an intellectual bent, as we call it. If you hear the term an intellectual bent, means they're interested in intellectual ideas. They want to know things. There's a whole culture of it. You go a little beyond that. If you live in a city, let me give you another word for it. Have you heard of city slickers? A city slicker? This is what's going to come out of this. City people are more informed on things. And they're more informed on things because a culture, remember this is this value system, emerges. And here's how it's reinforced. If you go to a dinner party or if you go to a restaurant with other people, you are expected to be up on current events. You're supposed to know these things. So one of the reasons you go to a lyceum, or one of the reasons you read all this, is twofold. One, you're interested, and number two, you're expected to know. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So we get in cities a value of newness, a value of answers, a value that embraces science and development, progress. How about that? Looking to the future for a better world. That is going to be at odds with the agrarian communities. They're not looking to the future for answers, are they? Where are they looking? They're looking to the past, right? They're looking for order in their lives and meaning to their life, and all the answers are already here, and it's in Scripture. And it's just awaiting the final return and the rapture. And by the way, there's lots of rapturists during this period of time. We're going to be talking about the intellectual and religious movement of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. It's amazing. It's in the water everywhere. People are going to be turning to that. So, trying to give you this idea that there's different cultures developing in America. There is an agrarian, rural, traditional one. And in the cities, there's this fun place where you're looking for entertainment, but also an intellectual embracing of change and expected to be up on this stuff.